Hello. I think I always sing hello to you guys when I hop on. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of me talking to my friends. Today I am having the beautiful, amazing, brilliant J.Matari on. Pro-Palestine, baby. I think I've made this clear, but if I haven't made it clear enough, today you will find out just how pro-Palestine I am. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding, actually. I'm full chest with this because we are in the process of watching a live action genocide, and it is required of us to speak about it. It's how I feel. It's how I feel. So I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in America. I grew up in Miami. And in my school, I went to private Catholic school, and they taught me, I read The Fault in Our Stars, and I read, a whole bunch of Holocaust literature. I watched The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I watched Schindler's List. And one thing that little me, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again, one thing little me understood from being given that information, right? Because, we're given what we're given when it comes to the education system, especially in America. But what I was given was an opportunity to see things, and Frank's diary, from the first person perspective of the people who went through the atrocities that they were going through. And for me, just as like a baseline rule of life when I am approaching human rights and my ideas about them, because everybody was always like, Lauren, you need to pick a thing. Pick a thing you care about and just stick to that. I'm like, you're funny. And the reason why I think it's funny to say that is because my purpose, I feel like, is to understand intersectionality and convey that to y'all. To understand why all of these things are connected, why the Congo is connected to Sudan, is connected to Palestine, is connected to freedom, is connected to colonialism, is connected to indigenous sovereignty everywhere, which is connected to our well-being as a global society, which is connected to, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of connected tos. And so intersectionality and human rights across the board are what I'm passionate about. And unfortunately, those have a lot of crossover sectors when it comes to all kinds of things that are happening in the world. It's not my fault. It's not my fault that everything is connected. It is the colonizers' fault that everything is connected. And so we are here to have these conversations. So today I'm talking to Janam. And here you are, love. I'm going to invite you into the chat without further ado. Oh, my friend is joining us. We're internet friends as of right now, but, I feel like that's part of the process of getting to know people. Hey!
Hi.
Welcome to the chat, friends.
Thank you. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Good? I don't know, man. Those questions.
Stupid question. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm keeping my spirit as grounded as possible so that I can be as useful as possible. You feel me?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. But I'm feeling okay in that. How are you doing, love? I want you to introduce yourself to the people, just for those who are here with us that maybe don't know who you are, which is dumb. You should go follow her right now, but whatever. That's your choice so far. But after this live, I'm positive you're going to understand who this woman is and why it's important for you to be understanding and following.
Thank you.
So go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, babes.
First, I just want to say that you're like an incredible ally. So thank you for doing this and showing people the way. I am J.Matari. I am a Palestinian living in the States. I am the daughter of Palestinian immigrants. I am the granddaughter of a Palestinian refugee. I'm a writer, and I now make content on the internet about Palestine.
Right, because it's kind of something that's become upon you because of the situation at hand.
Yeah. I used to, I started really like diving into this in 2021 when Palestine was really hot in the news then. And I like set out this mission to give people an insight into our culture and our traditions, and just like a form of education that kind of centers our joy because I really felt like there wasn't enough of that, if at all, like available to the public. And so I was just always trying to find creative ways to like tie in Palestinian culture and traditions into like trending things that were happening on social media, right?
Mm.
And then I realized that I was just kind of doing my people a disservice not talking about the reality of what is happening in Palestine every day, especially what's been happening over the last 3 months in Gaza. And so I think everybody said, like, all of the Palestinians right now on the internet and the diaspora have all said, like, nobody wants this, like, nobody wants to do this, nobody wants to make content about this, but we're all just kind of answering the call and like just filling in our roles as Palestinians of the diaspora. Like, our goal and our mission is to educate people on Palestine. People in occupied Palestine and in Gaza should not be doing that. They should not be telling you what their reality is. Like, that is our job as people who are living safely outside of Palestine. Yeah, it's all safe. We're all safe.
We're all so safe,
Yeah.
as is so obvious by all of the things that our government is deciding to do in response to very clear, atrocious war crimes that are completely indisputable. But that, you know, we've seen even as of today, like Senator Blinken or whatever the hell his name is, with a straight face, but like, you know, looking a little constipated, looking a little worried internally. But, you know, some people's faces
Yeah.
tell us their internal
Yeah.
truths. And his did that to me when I watched him speak. An absurd, like, oh, South Africa has no basis to be making these claims. I was like, do you hear yourself when you speak, sir? Like,
Yeah.
South Africa has no right to claim that a genocide is happening and would do that baselessly.
Right.
You really think, you really, South Africa? South Africa? No, I'm gonna need everyone to sit this one out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna need everyone to sit this one out, because this to me is monumental, at least in the scheme of things, right? Of holding something accountable, which, I mean, granted, at this point is kind of one of those, I think we have about a modicum of trust. Not even, bro. Like I don't even, that it's an obliterated trust.
I'm about to go to the government because I think I've got none left.
Obliteration
Yeah.
has happened at this point. But I do appreciate the fact that South Africa is taking ahead of that narrative, because I feel like there's no one better qualified to really speak to it as far as like modern day apartheid being enacted in real time in front of the world, and them having to continuously prove that they're not. I feel like it's the same, it's a similar narrative, of course. And that's what I was talking about, that intersectionality between all of these struggles and what I feel we're seeing right now, which is kind of this global diaspora awakening to the similarities between all of our grandparent stories of displacement, of persecution, of torture, of whatever it was that went into our own histories, and why we ended up in the United States, okay? Why we ended up,
Yeah.
because you know what I find funny that white people love to say, or what, you know, people who are brainwashed love to say, it's like, oh, why are there so many of them coming here if their countries are so great? I'm like, hey, have you ever heard of destabilization and the concept of migration, and like the idea that you're not going to raise your kids in like a war-torn area?
My favorite thing is when I like post an educational video and somebody comes at me with like what they think is like a got you moment, where they're like, well, if you think Palestine is so great, then like go there. It's like, that's what we're literally trying to do. But like,
we're asking for the right of
yeah.
return.
So it's not the moment you think that was.
Yo, it's the ignorance though, and it is the loud ignorance, the audacious ignorance to me, that has been so like jarring, I feel like, but it's something that you've probably been dealing with forever, because again, this is not new. This is a 75-year occupation. This is years and years and years of trauma accumulated into like this very global moment, because of how brazen of an attack it is and how publicly it's happening. And so it's just it's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think people realize that Palestine has been going through a genocide for decades. Like, it's just been a slower genocide. What you're seeing right now is happening very, very quickly, to kill nearly 30,000 people in a span of 3 months. That's not including anybody that's under the rubble, that's presumed to also have been killed. Like, that, I mean, this is at a pace like never before seen. So, but before that, it's not like life was much different. All of the stages, you know, I put out a video today about the 10 stages of genocide, and then quickly routed into the convention that South Africa is using to charge Israel with genocide. And they have 5 different specific points, but across the board, all of those points have been hit by the state of Israel. So they have been in a state of active genocide against Palestine and Palestinians for decades.
For decades. For those who maybe are tapping in now, you have the capacity to maybe explain a bit of the history, like kind of a synopsis of like what is going on and why, you know, people are this passionate and are really pulling up and talking widely about this, regardless of the way that we're trying to be silenced and trying to be and the narrative is trying to be controlled in so many ways. Like, could you just speak to like the just your perspective as someone who is a child of the diaspora of Palestinian folks and like whose grandparents were in this land and who you visited this land recently,
Yeah.
as you know, which thank God, like, you know, like I'm so glad that you got to like touch base and be home and
Yeah.
like I can't even imagine I whatever. Please
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start crying.
No, I'm using that. I'm really lucky that I got to go. It was a last minute decision. We were visiting Jordan and decided to take our chances and just like go into Palestine for 24 hours and not even 24 hours. And I'm really using that as like a sign from the universe that like I needed a quick reminder of like what we're all fighting for. So I'm really hanging on to those moments from this summer. But yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know the history of Palestine, indigenous Palestinians have been under threat. Our existence has been under threat, and our claim to ownership over our own land has been under threat since way before 1948. You know, 1948 seems to be the starting point that a lot of people are just now learning about. So we'll kind of jump from there. But in 1948, after the Holocaust and World War II, Jewish refugees were sent from Europe to Palestine. And a lot of people have this idea, because this is what they have been taught, and this is what we teach here in the US, that the state of Israel was created out of thin air, and this piece of land that was empty was given to the Jewish people who were victims of the Holocaust as some sort of reparations or as a gift, like an apology from, you know, the US and the West for taking part in their genocide. When in actuality, I think it's really important to acknowledge that like the reason why Jewish refugees were sent to Palestine is because they were not welcome in Europe and throughout the US. And so the existence of the state of Israel from its very foundation is just an extension of anti-Semitism. And so they, you know, completely erased the history of what Palestine was when these refugees had arrived. And they were telling, you know, they tell people that Palestine or Israel is a land without a people for a people without a land, implying that there was nobody there, that, you know, same thing that we teach about American history here, right? We completely erase the fact that the foundation of America resulted after the nearly 100 million indigenous inhabited this land.
Right.
It was not an empty land. Yeah, no land is empty. So yeah, so from 1948, there was like a mass exodus of indigenous Palestinians.
You good?
I think my internet is a little funky. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
So yeah, so there was in 1948 a mass exodus of Palestinians who were sent into exile. The number is roughly 750,000 Palestinians. My grandfather was one of the 750,000 that were made refugees. So were my husband's family. My husband comes from his maternal side comes from a city called Deir Yassin, a village, sorry, not a city. And it's one of the most famous massacres that kind of kickstarted what we call the Nakba, which is the catastrophe in Arabic. and his grandparents were survivors of that massacre. And so from that point on, there has been this active ethnic cleansing of indigenous Palestinians from the land. And it's not just our people that are under threat, right? Like the land itself, indigenous communities view themselves as one with the land that they inhabit. We understand that we're there to tend to the land, to cultivate the land, to care for it. We are visitors here. And so we have a deep, deep connection to something like olive trees, right? Some of the world's most ancient olive trees come from Palestine. And part of ethnic cleansing and the erasure of indigenous culture and population includes the biodiversity of a land. Like there have been millions upon millions of olive trees that have been burned and uprooted. And you know, olive trees are a source of income for Palestinians. It's a source of pride. They are our ancestors. They are a part of us. It takes nearly 15 to 20 years to actually cultivate the olives from an olive tree. So we understand that when we plant something like an olive tree, we are planting it for the future. We might not get to benefit from it in our own generation. That's what's under attack in.
So sorry. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. I was still hearing you, so I think you're good. But yeah, so that I think that's all so important to know. Just even the concept of just displacement, of terrorizing the land, of leveling historic places, residential areas, mosques, churches, hospitals, schools to the ground. The amount of journalists who have been murdered, the amount of children who have been murdered, the amount of people who have been displaced. Again, these are like, they're so evident, beyond evidenced, as far as like the way that these soldiers choose to document their atrocities. There's like this complete lack of coherent awareness, I think, of self and of humanity, where they like there's this true feeling. I see it and I hear it in the way that you know, these Zionists express themselves. It's very much like this very murderous, very justified, very audacious decision to be superior to something, which to me sounds exactly like the idea of white supremacy and the ideas of colonialism that have completely annihilated indigenous cultures throughout the world. And again, I think that that's where it draws back to that intersectionality I was talking about, where like so many of us are able to recognize the story, the Palestinian story, and what they are experiencing right now, like we said, is unprecedented in modern times. Like, because the whole Geneva Convention and the whole concept of, you know, we're going to move forward in such a way where we do not violate human rights anymore, because World War II was such a catastrophe of human rights. And so many people died so atrociously and so arbitrarily. Because war never has a reason. It is always a resource war. It is always for the sake of gaining more power, more control over resources and lands that are not ours, and having a stake and claim in that. And when I speak of ours, I speak of Western powers. I speak of Britain. I speak of the United States after World War II became the neocolonial superpower, essentially. And in the same year that Palestinians began their fight for freedom over in Palestine, you know, the United States was attacking Panama, was attacking Chile, was attacking, you know, Allende and Bolivia, and all of these places where socialism was rising and where the people were starting to realize their collective power. And, you know, there's a lot of scary stories about communism and socialism that has a lot of people in these kinds of, especially the story of my people, the Cuban people. Okay, let's talk about that. But, you know, it's like, it's truly, I feel like in this moment, like an awakening that is happening amongst those of us who are, again, like I said, in the diaspora of these colonizations. And again, this is happening in the 40s, right? So those are our grandparents who are dealing with these realities. Those are our grandparents who, you know, were still alive not less than a couple years ago. My last grandfather passed away 2 years ago, who left Cuba.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was never allowed to return. He had no right to return. He couldn't go to his mother's funeral. He couldn't ever see her again. And I never knew my great grandmother because we couldn't go back. Essentially, couldn't go back. Right? Was the people who had left. So, you know, all of that, all of that to say, I'm sorry. There's a car, and I got distracted. But all of that to say, you know, we're connected in this fight so much deeper than we even realize. And I think that's why those of us who are moved to say something, to speak, to use our platforms to educate the way that you do, to tell people about your customs, to remind people that Palestinians are human beings who are fighting for their right to be alive, who are fighting for their right to be seen and to be dignified as human beings and not just collateral damage in rich men's wars.
Yes.
You know, like this, it's not a question of whether or not it is the truth. It is a question of the amount of time it takes for people to let it sink in, you know, and to start acting appropriately and to start acting with intention and integrity towards a different reality, into a new reality that is in alignment with the values that we have been touting as the American people for a long time now, in order to engage in reckless foreign policy and decimate other countries who we know have nothing to do with what anything like what we're saying is the reason. It is disgusting Islamophobia that has reared its head once again, the same way that Trump's presidency allowed white supremacy's head to rear itself again once again, and drive us so far apart, so far away from the progressive ideals that we tout, that liberals tout, right? We're so far removed from it that the entire Republican Party is full-blown fascist at this point, and the Democratic Party is acting also fascist. So we're at a point now where none of it's really even making sense. The whole narrative is crumbling and falling apart.
Yes. Everybody keeps using this term, the veil is lifted.
The veil is lifted, honey.
I love. Yeah. I think that like collective community feeling is so important to hang on to, especially in times like this, because like what we're seeing right now coming out of Gaza should terrify people. You should be terrified. You should understand how
terrified. I cry every day about it, bro. I'm like, how the fuck is this? Every time that something new comes to light, every time that these motherfuckers lie and say these atrocious, like, it's literally like watching a child like throw candy and say they didn't throw candy. It's like, no, I didn't do that. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Video of you doing it.
I have a video of you doing it, bro. Like, not only do I have a video of you doing it, I have a tweet of you saying it. I have this. There's a lot of you are just being really loud about how racist you are. It's not my fault that you guys choose to purport so much evidence. It's not my fault that you are producing your own like evidence, like your own.
You're
like
outing yourselves.
You're outing yourselves. We don't have to do it for you. All we have to say is, we love the idea of free people, and you guys come out the woodwork talking about you want us raped. Like, over and over again, it's consistent rhetoric, which to me is just like, this is so much deeper than just, we believe in our right to exist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's a lot of proof that there's like a deeper rooted white supremacy issue at the core of all of this. And I think what you were saying before, like, when it comes to like liberal thought and progressive thought, like,
let's go. Let's get into it, mama.
The West is a very individualistic society, and it's set up that way for a reason. We like to think that we are the most important people in our lives, that the community doesn't matter, that if something in the community is wrong or makes you uncomfortable, it should not be addressed. You can simply remove yourself, right? Like that's the issue with a lot of like white therapists, is that when they get like brown and black and indigenous clients, like they don't really know how to help them because they don't understand the community mindset the way that we're all raised in. And so when you can kind of tap into the idea that the entire world is connected, what you're seeing will scare you. Even if you are still of the individualistic mindset, it should scare you, because if they can do this to people and broadcast it in 4K on your phone screen for 3 months and nobody does a damn thing about it, there is no stopping them from doing it to you. At this point, they are testing the limits. And so that's what we need to understand. Yeah, they're testing what they can get away with.
Yeah, it's honestly, it couldn't be more transparent
Yeah.
to me because they do it so recklessly and so
Yeah.
audaciously because they're proud of it.
Yeah.
And so it's not even like we have to search for the evidence of the intention. The
Mm-hmm.
intention, that's why it makes me so disgusted when I see these elected officials, these bot officials
Yeah.
being these spokespeople for this genocidal warfare,
Yeah.
criminal warfare, um, and lying
Yeah.
without even blinking, bro.
Yeah. There's a
And
lot of gaslighting happening.
it's sinister.
Mm-hmm.
It's sinister
Yeah.
to me because not only is it a complete insult to our intellect as a people,
Mm-hmm.
right? A complete insult to our intellect. It is also complete hypocrisy
Mm-hmm.
because we have literally spent almost all of the 2000s in other people using that to justify us completely obliterating and harming and psychologically and physically and emotionally damaging people that we have no business trying to control. And we have allowed that to really like guide our foreign policy and guide our sense of self as a country because
Yes.
so much of
Oh.
our nationalism is intrinsically tied to our militarism
Yes.
that
Yeah.
we don't even
Yeah.
question what's happening.
We tell people this, like we have convinced the American public that like the outside world hates us for this concept of freedom that we don't actually have here in this country, right?
No,
And
and
we're
if
constantly
you're
saying
not
we're
white,
defending our freedom, which if you take a second and like just look at the similarities in rhetoric between what American politicians and Israeli politicians are kind of peddling, it's all the same thing. It's all self-defense. It's all freedom. It's all they hate us because of this. So it's really easy to see that it's kind of one and the same government, like just
I mean, it's very obvious. I don't even think it's like super scandalous or radical at this point to point that
yeah,
out because I think anyone who's educated and anyone who sees what's happening right now understands what's going
yeah,
on. And yeah, I understand that being quiet in these kinds of scenarios historically is a better option because they're kind of ruthless, these people, you know what I mean? And they kind of move in very, like I said, sadistic ways. Again, they're like they have target precision weaponry because they specifically targeted journalists in their homes and their entire families. They just targeted a Hamas leader, quote unquote, in Beirut,
mm-hmm.
Lebanon, with
Yeah.
nothing to do with anything. And then they have their spokespeople coming out and being like, well, we're not taking responsibility for that, but whoever did that definitely is mad about this. And it
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be you guys who literally cannot possibly like grasp why that happened.
Right, right, right.
Couldn't
Yeah.
be
And
y'all.
meanwhile,
Couldn't,
all the time we're getting
couldn't be you.
dumb bombs. They're called dumb bombs on Gaza because they don't have precision, right? We know
Oh,
they
let's
have
talk
this
about
technology.
dumb bombs. Right? Like they're not allowed to be dropped on civilian populations as of a long time ago in war. So they've been kind of
Yeah.
like on back end, like we're not using these anymore. And now all of a sudden they're dropping in Gaza, which is just to say that the amount of money that was transferred or the amount of weapons that were transferred are stockpile weapons, which means that where does that money go?
Yeah.
Where does that money that they're using to make stockpile weapons go? Because you're not buying your own weapons from yourself, are you? Because if you are, then that isn't that like money laundering, bro? Like, I don't know. I'm not.
Get this
Let
lab
me
shut down.
let because I'm just like, isn't that kind of like selling your own stock back to yourself? Isn't that what Martha Stewart went to jail for? Like, because she knew that the stocks. Isn't that why she went to prison? Am I crazy? Am I crazy? I don't know.
No, no, you're not crazy. Most of the times you think you might be crazy, it's because you're
I
on
just
something.
add that in there so that I can't get sniped,
Yeah.
like I'm not crazy, bitch. I know we know what we're seeing. We're not, you know what I mean? Like we know
Yeah.
what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And the
That's the
thing
thing
is,
too. Like trust your like when it comes to Palestine specifically, trust your instinct, trust your gut, trust I keep saying this thing, like, you know what you know, right? Like Palestinians, we know what we know. So you could come up with the craziest story that sounds true, but in our heart, we know what we know is happening to our people. We know what has happened. These stories are in our blood. They're running through our veins. Like we don't need to show you the proof that you think you need to show us to justify what's happening.
There's also plenty of evidence. There are documentaries, there are
Oh yeah, we have the
docuseries,
evidence. Yeah.
there are films,
Yeah.
there are literal videos all over the internet with an abundance of evidence if you care to like sift through horrifying images and feed whatever part of you needs to see that in order to validate your support for people who are being obliterated
Yeah.
before our eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've never understood people needing that, but when you think about the zeitgeist of America, right? The kinds of movies that go viral, the kinds of shows that go viral, we have an obsession with gore, an obsession with death, an obsession with these like true crimes that are never really solved, even though obviously all these police know exactly what's going on, because it all feeds narratives that are profitable.
Yep.
These death narratives are extremely profitable because of our consumption of it. And I think that that's really like a really key part of this, that it's like when we think about why these things happen, there is no logical sense, right? There is a like incentive as far as like economically, like the control and stuff, but the pure like sadistic override of your humanity in order to go and get those gains, to me, is deeper than just money.
Yeah.
You know, it's sadistic. It is this indifference and lack of reverence for life,
Yeah.
while touting God,
Yeah.
and sanctity and religious wars.
Yeah. Same thing that happened to, like, as an American, and I have been gravitating far away from like still having that as my identity, but I am born and raised here, so it is
I feel you, girl. Same. Yeah. Same.
It is what it is. But like I have found so much strength and like knowledge in the indigenous population of this area that like to be able to kind of like connect, because right, there are still some people who many people, not some people, there are still a large enough population that denies what happened to indigenous communities here,
and also like pretends they don't still exist,
right,
which
right,
crazy,
which is what we were taught in school. Like we literally just, it was like a half a day lesson about like the extinction of the indigenous populations of the Americas. And so like not only is the history not there, but the minute part of it that is taught is just so wrong. And so like to be able to connect what happened, you know, for the people who are on board with acknowledging what we have done to indigenous populations of the Americas, we are like to be able to connect what happened with them with what's happening now, and to be able to see like the Zionist rhetoric and idea that like God has granted these people this land, and see it as like the manifest destiny that kind of like incentivized what happened here and how it was like their God-given right to this land. It's just the same shit being peddled over and over and over again, and it's just it's going to you know allow genocides to continue to indigenous populations, because while the world is better when indigenous cultures and communities are in control, it's not profitable, and war, like you said, war and death is profitable.
And so it's the extractive industries like fossil fuels and like all of these kinds of things that we know are driving our planet.
Yeah.
I mean, not our planet, ourselves to extinction, because the planet's gonna keep going.
Yeah.
When we run out of water,
rebuild.
we can't drink anything, and everything is burning, and we're burning outside because the sun is so hot. Like we're the ones that are gonna have to deal with those consequences and watch ourselves die off.
Or everyone got on board with climate change and
oh my God,
what's happening.
They are the
indigenous communities have so outspoken from day one about what is happening to our planet and why it needs to be protected.
Absolutely. They're the stewards of the majority of the earth that is left.
Yep.
Insatiable. more than anything
Frozen.
else. I'm frozen.
Think so. Yeah.
Hello. You're like broken up to me.
Am I broken up too? Somebody
Mm,
messing with our live. Meta's not happy.
no. Meta's like, girl,
Yeah. They've been on for too long.
they've been on for way too long, talking about way too much real
Yeah.
stuff.
This is what we need to be doing. We need to be having these conversations. You know, like abolition is a very lonely road. And I think it's important that we find each other. When you have friends that are willing to have these conversations with you, you hang on to them, because the ones that the ones that don't want to talk about these things, that don't want to talk about real life things, that are surface level friends, they will not be here for you when your people are going through a genocide. I
No.
can tell you. Yeah.
And they won't be here for you in the new earth.
No.
Because what we also refuse, not refuse, but like what we rarely seldom talk about in the grand scheme of all these conversations is the spiritual element of what's going on here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though like everybody's got their own version of spirituality. Every single book got its own version about what's happening right now. Let's say that as well. But more than anything, I think it's a revival of the diasporic
Mm-hmm.
peoples connection to their history,
Mm-hmm.
claiming of their history, grounding in the truth of it,
Yeah.
releasing this external validation need by white supremacy and by its systems. And the new earth is bringing, it's like, yeah, we're in Revelations. Things are revealing
Mm-hmm.
themselves. Yeah, we are out here and having to batallar, to battle with these powers that already are
Mm-hmm.
and have been for a very long time, but they're crumbling, y'all.
They are.
They're just crumbling, they're scrambling, the only thing they have are lies, and lies are a figment of a foundation. They are not real. And so they fall with a blow of energy from us if we all collectively understand our power as working class,
Mm-hmm.
as the laborers of this economy,
Mm-hmm.
as the ones who participate in said economy,
Mm-hmm.
as the consumers, as the ones who are on these sites consuming the things that we see, hear, eat. All of these things
Yeah.
are all viable sources and ways that we can disconnect from the system we've all been bought into and reconnect with one another to build a brand new
Yeah.
world, to build a new foundation, to help each other out of it, to help each other see it, to hold each other through it, you know?
Yeah.
Because the only way we're actually going to get there is with organizing with one another and creating new worlds amongst the world we already live in, you know?
Yeah.
Because the more that we invest ourselves in trying to change the systems that are, which is what I feel a lot of us kind of are invested in, because we feel like there's no other source of power, you know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what the delusion of it all is, that they are this all powerful
Yeah.
source, but really they're just fucking armed to the teeth with machines. That's it.
Yep.
Because these fighters are not fighting with
No.
heart, they're fighting with hatred.
No.
And when you fight with hatred that is misinformed, you're always going to be killing a soul for
Mm-hmm.
no purpose. And when you kill a soul for no purpose, it haunts you for the rest of your fucking eternity.
Yes.
And that is why soldiers come back from war with PTSD, with nightmares upon nightmares,
Mm-hmm.
seeing the spirits of the people that they've killed. You see the IDF soldier screaming at these people that he needs mental health services because he keeps seeing the people he killed. Yeah, bitch, you're going to be haunted for the rest of your life. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No amount of drugs will change it until you take your own life, and you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. Unless you're out here to repent, which is possible.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some people I feel like who are channeling into like what they've done and using that to like bring us to a further revelation of what truly is behind the curtain of Oz. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A very good friend of mine, one of my best friends, is a spiritualist, and she did a really great video. Her name is Jahan Mansi. She did a really great video on the soul and what, like, the karmic soul, and she brought up the video of, you know, the soldiers that are experiencing PTSD, and talks about how when you kill a soul, it's essentially attached to you, like the concept of like a haunted house. The soul, if it dies in a way that is like unjust, it is attached to the place or the person that took its life. And it's going to be there until you fix your karma, basically.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
When, like, the houses that were built over, you know, native burial sites and sacred sites,
Yeah.
like those spirits are haunting the out of everybody in that house that should not be in that house. And all
Yep.
of the, when I think of like the museums and stuff and all of the artifacts of the dead that they have in those museums that they've stolen and that they've
Mm.
desecrated, like, do y'all really think that that's not cursing you? Like, do you
Yeah.
really think that is not spiritually affecting
You can
the
feel it when you walk
world?
into a place like a museum. It's creepy. Like, you don't want to
Dude,
go there in the dark when the lights are off.
when I went to the Louvre for the first time,
Yeah.
I was walking around and I was like, this is a fucking cemetery. Like, this is
Yeah.
not their stuff. This is
Yeah.
not their stuff.
Yeah.
There's halls of countries things, like halls.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and they mask the theft as like a form of education, right? Like we have museums because we want to teach people about history.
They
But
charge you, and they charge you to walk through.
yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's oh,
Yeah.
it's just when you think about all of those elements, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how can you not see what's happening? What's happening in real time? Even like these people now trying to be like, watermelon is Israeli. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, guys,
First of all, nobody claimed that watermelon was Palestinian. It's just the
I'm
colors
pretty
of our flag.
positive I can get watermelon here in the United States. You can get watermelon pretty much where you can grow at this point. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Yes.
You know, thanks to the earth beneath us and the soil that
Yes.
allows us to grow things. Thank you so much for that.
I just like the
But
unoriginality
this
of
obsession,
Zionism is laughable.
this
Yeah.
obsession with like appropriation, this
Yeah.
obsession with what's yours is mine.
Everything, right? Like they have to like a lot of Palestinian foods, like we don't call them Palestinian food, it's just food, but you know what the culture it belongs to, right? Like but like there's a salad that like all Arabs eat. It's like cucumbers, tomatoes, mint, lemon, olive oil,
Oh, I
and
know this
salt.
salad
Yeah.
very well.
It's
I love
just
that salad.
Like you call it salad, but they have co-opted it and branded it as Israeli salad because they need to slap a name onto everything in order to prove that they exist. It's same thing with the watermelon. We called it Palestinian watermelon. We just used it was flag in Palestine. And so Palestinian artists and activists got creative. They found things that had the colors of the Palestinian flag, like a watermelon. And we just used watermelon. We didn't call it Palestinian watermelon. And now all of a sudden, watermelon is Israeli. So at some point, you have to just laugh.
I have to, because if not, the lunacy really drives me crazy.
Yeah, it'll make you feel crazy.
I have to be laughing because I'm just like, guys, you're not sane. It's just, I don't know what to tell you at this point. I don't know how to tell you about yourself. You need therapy.
Yeah.
You need some Reiki. You need an exorcism. Many of you, like,
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure. But like, truly, like, I've seen some of the people, like, when they're challenged or when someone tries to speak to them about their views, to try to expand their knowledge, to try to expand their capacity to understand something. Which, by the way, I have mad respect for people who are like grown up in Zionist ideologies and have undone that and are moving through undoing that and causing all kinds of ruckus in their households and moving through those things, because that interruption is
hard work.
Necessary. Necessary interruption. And shout out to y'all, because that's hard as fuck. That's intergenerational trauma bondage and breaking, bro. That's like spiritual shit.
Yeah.
That is curse breaking, baby.
Work. Yeah, that's really, really hard. I always tell anybody going through it, it's hard work. You have to give yourself grace. You have to give yourself time. There's a lot of things, you know. I unfortunately knew like a lot of self-proclaimed like anti-Zionists who kind of backslid when October 7th happened, and they didn't easily spot propaganda. So it's really, really hard to stay on track. And the ones that do deserve all the credit that they can get, because it makes a difference. And I mean, it's just another segment of the work that needs to be done, right? Like everybody's got something they need to tap into. Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like the dismantling is like a full-blown healing work. You know what I mean? It's like, it's an inner journey into each one of ourselves individually about, like, I feel like over the course of the past 3 months, everyone has been morally confronted with what their truth is. Like, what are you up to what ways have you reacted to this? Many people who didn't react a certain way are doubling back with this kind of guilt, or doubling down with what they believe is the truth, or what they're choosing to hold on to as truth, because there is no truth to it if it's like obviously like non-factual.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Trump introduced this idea of like alternative facts and these like fascist ideas that like allow for there not to be a singular truth, even if it's evidenced, right?
Right.
It allows and creates the opportunity for stories and figment and mythology. And a lot of the time, these kinds of illusions of grandeur that a lot of these politicians lose themselves in and don't allow themselves to like ground themselves into what their real job is, which is public servant.
Right. Right. We pay you. Yeah.
We pay you.
Yeah.
All of us are saying what we want and what we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are y'all ignoring us, y'all are changing the rules
Yep.
about how we're allowed to participate in which one of you get a voice.
Yep.
So according to the Constitution, not only are we allowed to dissent and completely reject what's happening right now, we're allowed to start some shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is your given human right to protest.
This is what these Republicans have been touting this whole time. Our Second Amendment right is specifically given to us so that if the government was ever corrupt, we had the right to defend ourselves against. Actually,
I love that the video is freezing at this part.
We see you.
Everybody say hi to Meta.
Man.
Yeah.
Billionaires building bunkers says it all to me. Billionaires building bunkers.
There was a great video that I'll send it to you after we're done here, but it was about like trying to understand like what all of this is for, right? Like it kind of just seems like they're like the US and Israel and Western powers are like kind of egging on the world, right? Like to see what the reaction is. And this guy goes in, yes, but it goes on to say like, what is the point of like twisting the knife? And he said that he threw out this theory that like it's this idea to cause chaos, to then be like, well, look how crazy the world is. Look at when people have too much power. Look at what happens. So here's the reason of why we need to pull. It's literally the Hunger Games, right? Like let's break it back in, right? And so, yeah. So, I mean, at some point, you know, you can call it a conspiracy theory, but like at some point you have to question, what is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of what they're doing in Gaza? What is the purpose of testing chemicals and weapons on people? You know, what's the test for? What part of the world is going to actually experience the true purpose of the creation of these weapons and these chemicals if they're being tested, if we're watching them be tested, right? Like where's the next spot going to be? And that's why when I said you have to hang on to that collective thought and you have to like move away from this individual idea that we're safe here, because if they can do this to them and they can get away with it and they can do it broadcasting in daylight in front of your face and we can sit here and watch it, you are not safe. This can happen to any single one of us. Any single one of us can be going through what's happening in Gaza right now. And it's been proven time and time again.
And also, I mean, I just want to also be real. Like, Black folks in America have been experiencing that for decades, ever since they were brought over here or enslaved here. Because a lot of them also, like, a lot of the Native population and Black population, like, are one and the same. And then a lot came over here. You know what I mean? And were brought over here through the transatlantic slave trade. You know, and so the way that they have been systematically targeted, all of the shit that is wrong with America is wrong with America because of white people trying their mightiest to make sure that Black folks and immigrants and like Latinos and Asian, and literally everybody besides them doesn't have the same access that they have. They just bend over backwards and jump through hoops and have actually shot themselves in the foot in their obsession with trying to suppress Black folks and their ability to prosper in this country, and Indigenous folks and their ability to prosper on their own land. They violate every fucking treaty. They build pipelines where they're not allowed to. They're poisoning our water supply. They've sold off our water supply to a lot of other fucking foreign countries, which is, I think, so vital that is never talked about.
Yeah.
Okay. Our farmland is owned by billionaires. So much of it is owned by billionaires, like who have zero investment in our health and our education
Yes.
and our
Yep.
wellness. Because why would they be invested in our
Yeah.
wellness? Think about that logically,
Mm-hmm.
not hypothetically, right? So it's like, what are we doing, y'all?
Yeah.
Like, what are we up to? Hasta cuando is what I keep coming up to. Hasta cuando, which is like, until when? Until when?
Yeah.
Until when do they get no red lines? Until when do, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
what's it going to take for us to locally organize, to get involved with our local organizations who are doing the work to dismantle having corrupt ass politicians and corrupt money in politics?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Even beyond that, what are we doing to dismantle these bitches?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, they're all working for the same guys, and that's what they're proving
Mm-hmm.
more than ever
Yep.
right now. You know,
Yep. For as much as we are all interconnected, they are all interconnected. And it's important that we see that, especially you want to talk about the Black struggle in America. Like, it is so intertwined with the struggle for Palestinian freedom. Our communities have been in
so
solidarity for decades. You see what's happening now with Cop City. I mean, it's like, American
and what
police are trained by Israeli soldiers. Like, it's all interconnected. You have to be able to see it. It's not a conspiracy. You have to be able to see it. The facts are all there. It's easy to find. You talk to people of the communities that are under threat. Like, the work is hard, but it's not that hard. And there's always a starting place for whatever you're interested in. I like to say that, I always say this in relation to Palestine, but it really is every struggle across the board. But like, Palestine is connected to every single activist movement that there is. It's connected to climate. It's connected to gender rights. It's connected to LGBTQ rights. It's connected to religious rights. It's connected to race. It's everything across the board. If you're interested in any avenue of activism in this world, if you're a vegan, if you care about anything, it is all connected. Everything is all connected.
literally, it's all connected.
Yeah.
It's really all connected, and I think that that's what I keep going back to. And when asked, like, oh well, why do you care so much? I hate this question, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
but when people ask the very, like, I just reject the whole premise of this question, but just the whole, like, why do you care so much? You didn't care when this was happening to this person or this was happening to that person. Why do all of a sudden you care so much? And I sit with that. Well, first of all, I've been caring for a long time, baby. Pay attention. But second of all, like, why is your um humanity contingent upon things? Like, why do you pick and choose when you mean your
Yeah.
morals? How do you get to do that? Where is the principality in that? Where is an actual principle or an actual moral foundation if it is non-applicable to certain types of people?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like you have a difficulty seeing it in other
Yeah.
scenarios. It's not that, because you very eloquently speak about so much genocide and so much apartheid
Yeah.
that you know is true, that is documented enough for you, that enough years have passed
Yeah.
by where you can acknowledge it. But when it's happening in front of your face, and when you're being asked to give a fuck about it, just give a fuck. You don't even have to do nothing
Yeah.
in America. Like, if you're here in the States, you literally don't have to do anything except be like, damn, I feel actually really bad for these people, and I'm gonna actually make some personal choices in my consumerist lifestyle that allows for these people, for me to make sure that I'm not directly harming these people,
Yes.
that I'm not directly a part of making sure these people get harmed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the
Boycott is
only thing that's
such a
being asked.
powerful tool. Yeah.
That's the only thing being asked, and that's too difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that
I
individual.
really want people to sit with their humanity in that sense, like, because it doesn't exist. You can't sit with
Yeah.
something that ain't there.
Yeah. And also, like, ask yourself what kind of life you want, right? Like, what is the purpose of your life if not to defend other people and ensure safety for you and everyone around you, right? Like, the world has proven time and time again that none of us are safe. So what is the purpose of your life? It can't just be to wake up and make a ton of money to spend before you die. I don't know.
Yeah,
At our core, I don't know anybody that really believes that that's what the purpose of this life is. So if
I'm
it's
finding,
not to be around each other and to protect each other, I don't, gotta ask yourself why.
literally, I feel like that's such a valid question, but I really thought, I don't know, man. I don't know what I thought, but I really thought more people were in touch with their humanity than what I'm seeing right now. Because although I do feel deeply that the majority of us feel this way, a lot of us are silent because a lot of people are scared and don't really have like the kind of backbone that exists within you and me, you know? But like, shout out to our ancestors.
Yes.
Hey.
That's obvious.
Right. But like, without like, there's a lot of people who are scared. There's a lot of people who are cowards, and there's a lot of people who don't know what's going on. No, I don't believe that. I feel like everybody knows what's going on. So if they those who are so vehemently on the side of this atrocity, albeit many of them are very brainwashed. I will say, like full blown. You're talking to like
a wall.
A wall. There's no penetration. There's no sponge energy. There's no. I'm willing to understand this. I've already decided what the truth is. You know. And so,
well, that's the perceived hierarchy of humanity, right? That's at that's core. That is believing that you and your beliefs and your existence trumps over anyone else's, and that's what you got to rid yourself of. That you have to humble yourself a little bit,
especially if you are claiming that your views are in accordance with some sort of God.
Oof. Yes.
Let's do that, because not one of y'all's books, because I've read a lot of, not one of them gives you the right to murder people.
Yep.
Now one of them gives you the right to steal shit from people or envy your neighbor. Now all of them tell you to treat others as you would like yourself to be treated. Yep. All of them tell you to do unto others as you would want done. So all of them give you these, and these are just like basic rules. They also tell you to not bear false witness, which means lie.
Right.
In modern terms.
Yeah.
Lie, about to lie. Okay. So if we're really gonna be claiming that we do these things because we believe in God and God has given us these rights, with qué cara, con qué cara, which means like with what face?
Yeah.
With what face will you face God when you're done here?
Yeah. I loved what you said before. And it's slipping my mind, but the idea is there. You said something about when these people like when they lie, they shake, right? Like I think you said they look constipated, right? Like
they do. They look constipated. They look so worried.
So there is this there is like belief in Islam that like on Judgment Day, that even if you try and lie to God, like your limbs will speak on behalf of the truth. And there was a moment when I think it was the first time that they had taken the demand for a ceasefire to the UN, and the US had voted no. And the guy so confidently put his hand up in the air and then sat down like this. And when his hand got here on his face, it was literally shaking. And I just remember looking at that moment and I was like, ooh, this hand is taking notes, because on the day of judgment it is going to be so loud, if you believe in that. But
yeah, baby.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
We have 1 minute left, and I don't want to like cut off any conversation, but I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you for using your platform for our people, and I know people are
sincerely easiest choice I've ever made. I love y'all. Like I love y'all. Y'all are the most beautiful, resilient people I've ever seen. I mean, granted, I've been seeing a lot of beautiful, resilient people for my whole life, but like you guys are so special, and I'm so grateful to at all lend my voice to helping make people aware of your cause and make sure that you guys are safe and striving for a safe world for us all. You know what I mean? That's really my only intention ever to speak.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to
always just focus on Gaza. Just keep your eyes on all of Palestine, please.
And the West Bank, occupied Palestine.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. And the occupation
and
Palestine.
Let's go.
Bye, Mama.
Bye. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.